Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the Leadership Refinery, where we bring together leaders, experts, and change makers to share the real lessons behind leadership, culture, and team success. I'm Denitresse Ferrell, your host, founder, and CEO of Culture Refinery, where we help organizations optimize the return on their most critical investment, their talent. And today I'm so excited to be joined by one of my favorite leaders, Missy Hopson, Chief Learning and Workforce Development Officer at one of the country's largest, most respected healthcare systems. And so Missy is deeply passionate and experienced at leadership development, workforce strategy, building cultures where people truly thrive. So I'm so excited to be able to hear her insights and share those with you today on what it takes to develop strong leaders at every level. So, Missy, welcome to the Leadership Refinery. How are you?
Doing great, Denny, and excited to be here and having this conversation with you. Looking forward to it.
Amazing. I'm so excited. So, Missy, let's dive right in. You have had such an incredible career already, shaping leadership and workforce development. But every great leader has their origin story, like a moment that really shaped the way that you lead. Was there for you a defining moment in your career that changed or really shaped and influenced the way that you lead?
Absolutely. And I'm going to go back to how I ended up in leadership because I never set out to be a leader. I was an academician teaching at Xavier University in New Orleans when a little Hurricane Katrina came through and flooded our campus. And I realized I needed to go do something else. And what could I do? Well, I happened into a position at a nonprofit in Baton Rouge, away from the place that had just been so devastated by Hurricane Katrina. And I was leading a team for the very first time. And what I learned there has really shaped my leadership. By nature, I'm an introvert.
Mhm.
I like to be head down, quiet, reflective. And I was leading a team of people who needed something in addition to that. And I kept trying to think about how do I balance who I am with who my team needs me to be. And I was kind of flexing a leadership muscle, trying to figure it all out, thinking I have to be extroverted. They're going to want to follow somebody who's extroverted. And the piece that finally occurred to me as I was reflecting on it is I just need to be me. And that my number one job, if you will, is my team. And for me to give my team my best, I got to be my real self as a leader. And sometimes that's introspective, sometimes that's quiet, but I'm always going to be first and foremost a leader who is focused on helping her team to thrive.
Oh my gosh. Yes, yes. I always say that, one of the most critical lessons that new leaders have to make is this notion of you can have your own leadership style, but it has to be adaptable to the people that you're working with. And that leadership requires relationship. There has to be connection. And you can't have relationship without authenticity. You can't put on a
So,
face, a mask in front and expect people to then trust you and have be willing to come to you and be willing to listen to the feedback that you give and trust that you've got their best interest at heart.
yeah, you got to show up the real you. And in the other piece that came with that lesson is it's okay to be uncomfortable as you're growing new muscles. It's okay. And that sort of vulnerability, that opportunity to grow in leadership, you got to have that team trust so that you can be vulnerable with them. Like, I'm figuring this out as we go,
Yeah.
and we're going to get this done. We're going to work together on it, but it's okay for us to be ourselves here in this space.
Oh, I love it. You've got to be authentic. You've got to be vulnerable. You've got to get comfortable being uncomfortable because growth is not easy. And if I always go back to this notion of like what learning feels like. I think we forget what learning actually feels like. We think that learning is fun, We think that learning is you read it or you saw it done and you go replicate it, you learn the thing, it's all great. But the way what your brain needs to happen for those new neural pathways and maps to start sparking and connecting is friction. Learning
Yes,
requires some friction, it requires struggle. And we keep
growth
counting the
occurs at
struggle as
that edge.
bad. Yeah. We think the
Yeah,
struggle
because
is a
we can.
sign of badness.
Complete agreement. It's learning at that point of discomfort where we pick up new skills, we see ourselves in new ways, those new neuronal pathways have formed, and then we can forge ahead. And we don't necessarily mind map to the way we had known it to be. We now have new skills, new muscles, new memories that we can exercise. It's part of our leadership toolkit that helps us become increasingly more effective leaders.
I love that. I always wonder, and as we, I coach as well, and when I think about coaching, I'm always trying to help people get really more comfortable with yourself and recognizing what's happening within yourself to see, ooh, I'm feeling frustrated.
Yes. Can I identify that emotion that I'm having right now? And do I know have enough self-awareness, self-reflection of knowing when I need to get some clarity of distance and I maybe need to pause and not have a reaction.
Mm-hmm.
I need to
Mm-hmm.
put it on pause, reflect for a moment, try to self-assess what's happening, what am I sensing here, what's my part of this, so that I can come back with a more thoughtful response.
Yes. Yes. Oh, I love it. That it's such a powerful like that pause, reflect, what's happening, right? And then how do I move forward? It's such a critical skill for leaders and everybody to be honest, but definitely for leaders because you're setting the example. So,
Right.
you've worked with many leaders, right, over the years, and we know that when you step into leadership for the very first time, it's a huge shift, right? As you just spoke, right? Through your work in people development, you've seen firsthand what new managers struggle with the most. What are some of the most common challenges that you've seen new managers face, and what kinds of support actually help them succeed?
Yeah, great question. I do see this struggle often. There's a couple of things that are happening there that I would lift up. One is I often see new leaders struggle with what they describe as imposter syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
I know they gave me this title. I'm not really sure that I've earned it. I'm not really sure I should be the person leading this work, leading this team. There's a lot on my shoulders now. So it's a confidence crisis that they may have in the beginning. And they're trying to feel their way through that. So some of the early supports are really good induction programs, having a really great mentor that you can ask questions to on how did you approach this situation? How did you do this? If you can have a really great coach who asks you very thoughtful questions so you can come to new ahas, that's a way of supporting that new leader on that journey and helping them to build confidence and always reassuring them you're not an imposter.
Mm-hmm.
None of us started out with these skills. We all had to crawl before we learned to walk. We had to walk before we learned to run. And the same is true for leadership is in the beginning, you're developing your leadership acumen. It doesn't mean you have all the requisite parts there at the right level from the get-go. It's experience, it's reflection, it's mentorship, it's coaching, it's a really great onboarding induction program that can really help to put somebody on the path to success. And it's also the gift of a really great leader working with them. If
Mm-hmm.
your direct leader has got your back and they've shaped an environment that's high trust and they say, I've got an open door. When you have a question, ask me. I want to make sure that you know that I understand my role is supporting you in getting your work across the finish line with the right quality, right outcomes, right efficiency. And I don't expect that you're going to have all the answers at the get go, but I do expect that we're going to work on it collaboratively. That I'm here to support you and help you move past obstacles, move past areas that are unknown or unclear, All questions are fair questions. You got this.
Yeah. Oh, you called out so many great points. I reflect back on my early leadership journey, and some of those points were the things that I call out that were missing, right? And in hindsight, oh, if only I would have had this, right? In my talking with other leaders, I asked sort of, what did you wish you had that you didn't have? And one of the things that we find is, a lot of times, not you guys, you all do a phenomenal job, but a lot of times organizations, we sort of promote you to new manager, and there you go manage this team. Good
Yeah,
luck, buddy.
good luck.
And it's a totally different job. And I think that is one of the key things that folks miss, is when you are the doer of the work to the orchestrator of the work, it takes a totally different skill set, a totally different mindset. And if your onboarding was just sort of HR compliance, then you aren't ready. You don't know that, and so you're going to fumble, and it's going to take you a longer period of time to close that gap without the right supports. What you described, that holistic sort of surrounding, enveloping them with that right support, I think is so critical. And I think the only thing that I would even add there is like some peers, right? Who else is sort
Yeah.
of going through this with you, that you can bounce
Who else can?
ideas off?
That's that cohort model.
Yeah.
We handle that through an induction program where our new supervisors are placed with other new supervisors. They meet once a month and they have a subject matter expert who comes in, shares some information. They do pairs and shares, Q&A, and all of those are ways that we're beginning to grow that support network around that new leader to help to make sure that we really are working to set them up for long-term success. And again, that's the place where if I can give you lots of different avenues and resources for you to go, this is what I need in this moment. And if
Mm-hmm.
I can get you to critically reflect on how that's working and what you've tried or where you might need to make a pivot or a shift, I'm going to have a much stronger, happier leader. And I'm going to have a much stronger, happier team who is following that leader.
Yes. Yes, we are so aligned. We are in the midst of rolling out our one of our signature programs, which is our new manager development program, and it's following a very similar cross company cohort model, regular conversation, small peer groups, coaching, and we're talking a lot about the mindset shift, and we're leveraging our inside out leadership framework around, you've got to understand yourself, you've got to build one-on-one relationships before you can start thinking about how you lead an actual team, right? Because we keep saying that
Yes.
there's no I in team, but truly, a team is a combination of multiple individuals. You have to manage the person and how that person fits in the team. You can't just do a peanut butter spread. So I always love the way that you all organize things. It's always in alignment with what we think too. So we're always excited as we continue our partnership. So I always love talking to you because you get it. You get it. Um, Another question for you, right? Because leadership, it is this ongoing journey. Sometimes you get the promotion, you're like, yep, I've arrived. No, you've not. You've started. So if you had to identify one essential skill for a first time leader to master, what would it be?
Master the art of asking really good coaching questions of your team. Just get really good at asking, tell me more about that. What are you thinking here? What else could we try? What have you tried? Walk me through your plan. If we can ask really good questions, we can, one, we're listening, so it practices good listening skills, which also a new leader needs to get really good at. But if I'm listening, I'm going to hear and challenges that my team is facing along that pathway. I make room for innovation. I make room for them to share their unique strengths, their way of getting the work accomplished. And I'm demonstrating to that team member, I see you. I
Mhm.
respect you. I know you bring value to the organization and to the work that we are doing on behalf of our patients. So help me to know more about your strengths, and I get to know more about you and empower you to do more. The more I ask really good questions, getting to know how you think, getting to know how you thrive, getting to know what your passions are, because I can leverage that information to really help to shape a unique pathway for you as you
Mhm.
do your work.
Oh my gosh, so good. I always think that every manager needs to be a coach. It's such a key, critical, powerful skill set to have. I want to switch gears just a little bit and think beyond individual leadership, but as we think about like how we create thriving teams and sort of overarching strong workplace culture, because we know how important that is for organizations long-term success, but also for individuals long-term success. Let's talk a little bit about psychological safety, right? We know that that is such a critical component of high performing teams. From your perspective, what are some practical ways that leaders can foster trust and psychological safety within their teams?
Yeah, I think trust is the foundation for all things. So trust is what helps us to have really good conversations. It is what allows a team member to raise the proverbial white flag. I've got too much on my plate. What can I do? Help me prioritize. Without trust, they're not bringing that forward. And without trust, they're not telling you that something is amiss. They won't stop the line
Mm-hmm.
when a physician is about to operate on the wrong leg without psychological safety. So it is an imperative that we as leaders are intentionally cultivating open, transparent climates. You have the larger organizational climate, but every team is a microcosm of that culture. And you, as leader, have to be very intentional in thinking about what's the culture that I am co creating with my team. What is this culture? If I want great outcomes, that needs to be a culture of belonging, a culture of collaboration, a culture that's built on a bedrock of trust.
Mm-hmm.
So, how am I going to get there? That goes back to being an authentic leader. It's going back to really asking those good questions where you get to know your team. It's also demonstrating your own humility and vulnerability. I think in the past world, leaders had the benefit of being an expert in the area that they were leading in. I know how to do all of these different parts and pieces, and I can help to sustain that team along that process line. The way we work now is wholly different, and you can no longer be the expert in all areas that you lead. You have team members who know considerably more than you. You have team members who are closest to where there are challenges, and by the virtue that they're closest to it, they're going to have best ideas for solutions
Mm-hmm.
on how to create something more efficient, more effective. So if you can get that bedrock of trust and you making sure that all of us are aligned, we're working a purpose together. We are moving a needle. We're headed towards our goal, towards the vision that has been set. But I need all of you, each team member contributing their unique strengths, their unique insights. And I want you to know, I want to hear if something's not working well, I need to know it. So for me as a leader, as a first time leader of individual contributors, I was always holding my one-on-one meetings, held it sacred. It's
Mm-hmm.
like that was a time where I can make sure I had time to listen to a team member. And then I started structuring them with even better questions. So they might have their agenda items of business that they're leading, but I would have additional questions for them. On a scale of 1 to 10, how are you professionally? How are
Mm-hmm.
you personally? What's the reason behind that score you gave it? What can I do as a leader? This was the other thing for psych safety, getting really good at asking for feedback on what you could do differently as a leader. And that takes a willingness to be humble because you have to recognize that you're not perfect, not perfect at leading,
Yeah.
but what you can be perfect at is getting better.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to get better each time. I'm going to admit my mistakes, But I'm also going to come in and ask my team members one on one, what do you need from me? If I could do one thing that can make your experience today better, what would it be? When I ask those good questions and I'm showing them that I'm interested in their experience and how they're experiencing our culture, I'm creating a climate where they understand I have their back and they're much, much more likely to come to me if there's a problem, if there's a challenge. They're much more likely to raise a concern. So now when I am sharing a plan with a team, I ask them, I want everyone to put on a different hat and tell me what's wrong with this plan. I want to invite dissent because it's only through that that we are going to turn out the best plan. And it's going to take all of us. So I think those are some of the tools that we can use to make sure that we are really shaping a climate of psychological safety. Is you've got to set the stage for that team member, for the team,
Mm-hmm.
and then you got to honor it. And when people bring you difficult feedback, you got to graciously receive it and thank them for it.
Yeah. Oh my God. You touched on so many powerful, powerful points, right? Around being aligned towards a shared goal, the importance of really holding those one-on-one relationships. So it's so critical, and we overthink it. We like overlook it so quickly, and it's so important. The power of feedback, both giving it and receiving it, and we found that people are uncomfortable on both sides of the feedback conversation, right? And we do a whole program around feedback where we talk about both sides of the feedback conversation and the neuroscience around why you're uncomfortable, why it feels the same as a
Yeah.
line in front of your face, and how can you calm sort of your brain a little bit? What do you need to do before you walk into the feedback conversation, right? The things that
Yep.
happen before you can get candid, right? I always say you have to earn the right to give feedback. It's not default. The way you earn the right for me to actually receive it is through relationship.
Yes. Yes. You remind me, Denny, I sometimes coach leaders when I have to give them feedback or I have feedback that they're receiving. And sometimes that discomfort comes in because there are barriers to how we receive feedback. We
Mm-hmm.
feel very threatened sometimes. And I oftentimes will tell a team member at the beginning of a relationship is I'm going to give you feedback and that's because we have a relationship that we're going to build on trust and I'm going to trust that when you receive that feedback, you know that my intentions are to help to make us a stronger team, help to get the right outcome. And if you disagree with the feedback, I'm going to ask you to reflect on it and then come back and let's have a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But all of it, and I'm going to do the same for you. If you have feedback from me, I'm going to receive it. I'm going to reflect on it. And we've got to make sure that we understand that feedback makes us stronger. It's a gift.
It is.
It's a gift.
It is.
Receive it as that. And if you block somebody who's giving you that gift, they're not going to share it again. They'll still have the thought. You just won't know it and you won't be able to improve or take an action on it
Yeah.
because you didn't make the space for it to be okay for feedback to be shared with you.
Oh my goodness, Missy. And what you just talked about brought up another thought for us that we often talk about when we're doing our feedback work is feedback by definition is a conversation. It's a two-way street. And so often we look at it as I'm going to tell you and you listen and nod your head or
Yeah.
disagree quietly and then you're going to walk away. And it's a two-way conversation because the intent is to influence future behavior. And so,
Yes.
if my intention is not to influence how you move, either how you continue doing what you've been doing because it was something great, or how you make adjustments to what you were doing so it can be better, if my intention is not to influence that behavior, then it's not feedback. And then I have to consider why am I giving it then, right? If it's not going to
Right.
influence future behavior, it's not feedback. And if it's so important that it's influencing future behavior, then I need to treat it as such. I need to prep for it. And I think what one of the reasons feedback gets such a bad name is because we're calling everything under the sun feedback. Oh, great job. Denny, you did a great job on that presentation. That's not feedback. That's
Not
praise.
not meaningful
Thank you.
feedback.
I appreciate it. Thank you. That's not feedback though. I didn't like the
Yeah.
way this happened. This wasn't effective. Okay, that's not quite feedback though, right? How much prep did you put into us having this conversation with the thought that you want my behavior to change on the other side of it? Which means you have to consider me. You have to
Yeah.
consider how I'm going to respond, how I'm going to receive it. What energy do I have? There's so many. I can talk about feedback all day. I can talk about feedback all day.
It is one of the most important skills for us to build both as leaders and as team
It
members.
is.
So I've got to be able to give it, I've got to be able to receive it, and I've got to be able to take an action on it.
Yes. Yes. I will say I was probably a solid 15 years into my career minimum before I had someone give me feedback that was well received, that was effective,
Uh
that
huh.
it was
I
really
believe
good
it.
feedback. And it's just this gap. It's like this, and it's one as a manager, you've got to be able to do that. As a leader,
You, you do have to be able to do it. And I'm struck because we had a session at our leadership kickoff on asking for, receiving, giving meaningful feedback. And we had 350 leaders in each of two breakout sessions. The room was standing room only. And we asked the leaders in the room, and these are managers and above, talk to us about feedback. How many of you have gone through feedback training before? 100% of the hands go up. So we're like, okay, well, you're in this session. Why are you here? How many of you still think that there's something that I'm not getting right with respect to either giving, asking, or receiving feedback, and I need to learn more? 100% of the hands go up. So I think it's a vital skill for leadership. It's often one we lack confidence in.
Mhm.
It's very vulnerable to be able to request somebody else to give you feedback. But when we can learn to do that and understand how it can make us stronger, make us a better leader, make our outcomes much more likely to be met, then it becomes a really super weapon, if you will, a super tactic, a super skill, a superpower within the world of work. And it's really, truly something that I think the best leaders know how to leverage that superpower fully.
Because it's the polish, it's the sharpening. That the feedback is what does the sharpening. If you think
Yes.
like in technology, the feedback is the response to the thing you just put out. Is telling you how well the thing you put out is performing. You can't build a better product, a better solution if you don't listen to the response and make changes based on it. So it's always necessary. That's how you iterate. One of the things
Yes.
that you just called out, I know I feel like I'm going on a slight aside, but I think it's so important because you all do such an amazing job with the way that you structure your leadership development and your learning academies and things like that. And so we've got some commonalities there. One of the things that I think a lot of times where learning and development as a whole has dropped the ball is it's often been historically been almost event focused. You did this training, you did this course, you did this workshop, and when it's time for me to go apply it, in the moment, it's not as easy for me to pull from what I learned. There's not enough practice, there's not enough application, and there's not easy, quick ways for you to pull in what happened before, what you learned, how you don't have a process. We've not changed your behavior. We've not changed
Yeah.
your process. And that's one of the things I think is so important in all of these things, right? Even if we're talking about new manager development, learning how to build psychological safety, trust, feedback, how you leverage your one-on-ones. It's what happens after the program. What do I give you? I give you a here is a quick cheat sheet when you have to give difficult feedback. You have it on your computer, it's on your desktop. Anytime you need to pull out, you have a resource of various sort of checklists and tools and tips and things like that that you are going to leverage as you are a manager, and you're going to customize and tailor that as you evolve and get more comfortable and make it your own. But now I
Yes.
know before I go into a feedback conversation, I'm always starting from this point. These are the things that I need to be
Yes.
thinking about before this conversation. These are things I need to make sure that I do after this conversation. How do I make it easy for me to pull that on a regularly, right? That is when we get that to where it's almost not that I remember exactly how to do it, because sometimes we don't, maybe feedback you should do often, but there's some skills that you learn you don't do enough. But if I know where to go quickly and can pull that whatever that resource quickly, it makes it
Yes.
easy to embed it.
I completely agree. The other thing that I like to think about for that practical and applied, do you have a safe space to practice? And sometimes that safe space to practice before you have to give, especially if it's feedback that you know might be taken in a way that it might be difficult to give, but you got to do it
Mm-hmm.
because you need to make sure that the feedback is shared in an appropriate way. But it may be helpful to practice with a mentor.
Mm-hmm.
Can I come in and share this feedback that I'm going to need to share with somebody? How have you approached these types of situations? Can I role play with you? That's a safe place to do it. We've actually found some success in using some new AI tools on communications where it's like, hey, you can record yourself practicing that feedback and have that AI tool assess how well you did it. So there are some new tools and technology that give you some different opportunities for practicing in a safe space as you're building the muscle.
Yes. Oh, yes. I love
Build that muscle.
it. Takes you have to do something. You can't learn, like I always say that we are as a people, we are great at consuming.
Yes.
Consumption is not learning. You've got to do something with it. You have to do something with it before it turns into a lesson, before it truly is learning.
Yeah, great. And it's really great that you mentioned that because that's where a direct leader can come into play. So if you shared with your direct leader, I'm going to go and do this, here's how I'm going to approach this conversation. Next one on one, the direct leader can say, how did it go? What do you think you did well? What would you do differently? Why so? So they can again ask those sort of really good questions of you that helps you as a leader go, got it. Here's how I acted with intent. Here was the outcome. It came out as better than I expected. It didn't come out quite as good as I had hoped, but what could I do differently? So you have somebody who is helping you build that muscle as you go.
Yeah. And that also brings us to like a slight aside, but it elevates the point that we've been making around the power, the impact of a good leader. It continues to, it's a snowball effect. And so I find that, right, when we've not helped new leaders do well, they go on to, continue to lead and they still haven't quite figured it out. And so you're a new leader reported to someone who never quite figured it out, and you don't get that relationship. You don't get that coaching and that mentorship because you're no longer new. Your experienced leader never had to cultivate that either. And so now you're having to manage being a new leader, but also how do I manage up? Where do I go get these things that I'm not getting here? And even if you have a great leader, those conversations require what we've been talking about, relationship. It requires me to trust my manager as a brand new manager to come tell them I don't think I know what I'm doing. Right?
Yeah,
I have to trust.
but if that leader understands that part of their responsibility, their role is to develop their talent. It's what I'm doing. And we know that only 10% of learning is going to come through the formal path. The majority of how we grow and learn, the majority of it is in the world of
Hmm.
experience. And if your leader's developing their talent, they also understand how experience is shaping that leader, helping them to be stronger. And when that leader takes the next level, the teams beneath them are going to be strengthened, and the leaders beneath them are going to be strengthened because they will carry forward that notion that my role, in part, is developing the talent around me,
It is
helping each to reach their full potential.
so critical in like the snowball effect. Oh my goodness, so critical. I love it. So when we think about team dynamics, right? If a leader, new or old, wanted to make just one change, what's one simple but powerful change a leader could make to help improve team dynamics or engagement?
I think the first thing that a leader could do is to make sure that they are rounding on their team members And when they're rounding, having meaningful questions for making sure I get to all of my team members. I got a set of questions that I flex them. Sometimes I'm rounding for engagement. Sometimes I'm rounding for process improvement. But I'm going to make sure that I'm connecting in a real way with each team member, because the more that I do that, it goes back to knowing who is on my team, how I'm developing them, what their passion and purpose is, because then I can tie that back to the work that we are doing, to the passion and the purpose of the organization, so that we're strengthening our team's output for the mission that we are all collectively working to achieve. So for me, it's in the relationship that all of leadership is made better. The stronger we make those relationships, the more intentional we think about how we cultivate those relationships. So it's that, again, I guess it all goes back to great questions, listening first.
Mm-hmm. I love this process, this framework that you just mentioned, right? Coming from the healthcare environment, right? Of rounding on your team. I love the way you framed that. Can you, for those who are watching who don't have a healthcare background, give them sort of the quick and dirty of what you mean
Yes,
by that?
yes. Yes, so rounding comes out of Johns Hopkins. There was a nursing hospital that went in a full circle, and nurses really walked around the round circle of the floor to meet with each patient and understand what the patient's needs are and what they would need to do to help that patient. And that developed into leader rounding, where proverbially now leaders round on each team member to understand what that team member's needs are, to understand how that team member is in this moment in time doing, to listen if there's anything that needs to be escalated, if there's anything that the leader needs to immediately address, they can. But even more so, I'm also now including in that rounding for relationship building, rounding for meaningful connection, because we want, most of us, I dare say, most of us
Mm-hmm.
want to work more than a job.
Mm-hmm.
We spend most of our time at work with our work colleagues. We want to make sure it's a really great place. And to be a really great place, it's the quality of the connections, the quality of the relationships. Rounding is a tool that helps to make sure we are more than just a job.
Oh my goodness, I love it. Thank you for framing that up, because we see similar things happen in various industries, but I love the way sort of you frame that for the healthcare industry, because I think others can take that and really take that and make it their own as well. All right, I know we're running close on time. I can talk to you for hours on end. This is always such great conversations. I would love to hear, you've played such a critical role in designing strategies that support leadership growth, from professional development programs, mentorship programs, sort of running the gamut. With the workforce evolving and the way of work evolving and employee expectations shifting, what are you seeing as the biggest transformations happening in leadership development today?
I think it goes back to leaders today are in a steady state of change. The work is changing near daily. Technology changes it. The way that we operate changes it. The ways that we work have changed, more flexibility, hybrid teams, remote work mixed with in person work. A leader, I've said it earlier, a leader before could be a technical expert leading a team on a process. We really need to make sure that leaders are skilled with adaptability. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't say flexibility, but adaptability,
Mm-hmm.
because we're going to have to adapt and change the way that we do things, the way that we work, much more frequently than ever before. So, for a leader to really help their teams go through that level of um, constant change and opportunity, how you frame it, how you talk about it, and your own resilience, your own adaptability
Mm-hmm.
is going to make a critical difference in how your teams thrive.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Missy, this has been such an amazing conversation. I thank you for sharing all of your thoughts on leadership, on workplace and talent development, on building powerful cohesive, aligned teams, the importance of investing in your people. These are the conversations that the Leadership Refinery was really all about fostering and helping to amplify. So thank you for sharing your voice. And I know that we both agree leadership is not just about a talent, it's really about the impact that you are able to have every day. And so, as we wrap things up, if you could leave leaders with just one piece of advice, one final parting word, what would it be?
Thank you, Denny. I think that what I would hope leaders understand is the big is always in the little. And when we're thinking about cultivating culture, when we think about building a great team, it's in the day to day. It's not in dramatic moments. It's in the small. It's in the quiet. That the type of team we're shaping, the type of work our team produces, becomes the norm, becomes strong. So the big is always in the little. We got to do the little things really well with attention to it because every part matters.
Oh my gosh. Brilliant, brilliant. I Mic drop. Thank you. Thank you so much. Missy, where can folks find you if they want to hear more about what you've got going on in the world?
Oh, great. They can reach out to me on LinkedIn or else email me. I guess we can share my email address in here would be fine. chopson@oxnard.org. Always happy to have a good conversation with somebody else who's in this space, thinking about this space, who understands that a leader's role is their team
Yeah.
and how we develop a great team to do our work.
Oh my goodness. What a powerful conversation. Thank you so much, Missy. Listen, we believe great leaders aren't born, they are built. And that happens through intentionality, through learning, through ongoing development and refining at every step of the way. So until next time, keep leading boldly, keep investing in your people, and keep refining your own leadership skills. That's all we've got for you. If you want to keep the conversation going and want to learn more about how we help organizations develop strong leaders, connect with us at Culture Refinery. Take care.